Hey guys, so welcome back to the Seoulite. It is a snowy day here in Seoul, and I think this is the most snow that I've seen outside during the daytime that has fallen this winter. So it's a little bit chilly, and I would say last night's response to former Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, coming in to Seoul was lukewarm. All right, so we saw the highly anticipated return of UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, or former UN Secretary General, I should say. And he was met by a lot of reporters and a big crowd at Incheon International Airport. Why? Mainly because he is seen as a very serious contender for the next presidential election of Korea. Okay, so here are the Seoulite's top 3 inspiring moments of Ban Ki-moon's return and top 3 shadiest moments. First, let's start with the shady, because that's what you like. So number 3. Who are the random kids? Do you see how they just shoved those kids right in the front, right next to Ban Ki-moon? One little white boy and one little girl over there dressed in a hanbok. She was looking like she needed to smile to save her life, and that dude just looked like he was loving all the spotlight for a little bit and then just started getting bored with what was going on. You know, these days, anybody can make a big performance out of a staged press conference. And so when I saw people holding up signs that they had written in hand, it made me question a little bit if they were trying too hard to make it seem like there was more support for Ban Ki-moon than there may really be. Number 2, before he boarded the plane, he was met with a personal allegation and accusation that he had accepted a bribe in the hundreds of thousands of dollars over 10 years ago. Then very recently this week, there were allegations of his brother and nephew engaged in a bribery scheme to sell a $1 billion building in Vietnam, and that indictment was filed before he got onto the plane. So he had a lot to think about, and then when he landed, he really didn't address the concerns, I think, satisfactorily. Of course, he just got off the plane, but it seemed like he was still trying to distance himself. And the number one reason is he kept name-dropping the United Nations. And yes, we should be very proud that he served for 10 years in the United Nations, in the top seat at that. But it just sounded like, somebody who got their master's at Harvard, and no offense, but the master's at Harvard is not as hard to get into as the undergrad. And then you see these people just name dropping, oh, I went to Harvard, I went to Harvard, I went to Harvard, at every single occasion, oh, pass the soup, I went to Harvard. And it's just like a 1 year's master's program maybe. So that's the way it kind of felt. He was saying oh, I'm gonna use my experience from the UN to solve the economy. Oh, I'm gonna use my experience from the UN to save politics and bring our country up to a global standard. It was UN, 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 UN. So I'm wondering how fast that is going to become tired. And of course a bonus, because everybody likes a bonus. So this is kind of a good and a bad point. He said that he wanted to work for a change in politics, not a change in government. Basically saying that we're not here to fight amongst each other for control and power. We really need to reform the political system. That, of course, is a great statement and goes into my next category, but I would say it's a little bit Pollyanna-ish, especially it does not address the concerns that people have about Ban Ki-moon being away from Korea way too long to not know how the mechanism of politics works in Korea. So there's a question of, will he be able to assemble a team that believes in the same values? Because the people who are in politics right now in Korea have a system of payments, and there's a system of paying your dues and then getting the reward. And if suddenly he walks in and says, I'm gonna change this whole system, what about all those people who sacrificed all their dues to try to get a reward? They're not gonna be happy. It's the people even within the same party fighting it out with each other. So it's a question of whether he will be able to wrangle in the politics of people around him, the people outside. This is a big job. This is much different than being a bureaucrat and having everybody listen to you because of a set hierarchical structure. It does not look like he was able to wrangle the internal politics of the United Nations. Within that one organization, had he been known for being a true reformer, innovator, and someone who gets the politics out of the situation, then I would believe that he could actually make an institutional change in the way that politics is run in Korea. Okay, so now let's go over some of the inspiring things about what he said. Number 3, he said he's not going to dilly-dally, he's going to make an immediate decision. That seems to show that he has been preparing, he's been talking to people, and he is an executive decision maker. Number 2, it looks like he really wants it. I don't know if it was like good turn-down service and like a 5-course meal that he got on that Asiana flight in whatever class of cabin that he was in, but he looked vigorous, he looked strong, and he looked like he was determined to succeed. And number 1, he did say, like I said, he wants to change the politics, not the government. And so he also mentioned that we need to get out of this system of like, I'm dominant over you. And so that does go to the core of a lot of the reforms that Korean people are hoping for, not only in the political arena, but in certainly the business arena and even in personal life. So at least he knows that there needs to be a shift in power. And the bonus reason why his return was inspiring was that he said that he's going to use his experience from the UN to apply to Korea in terms of statehood and nationhood. He said that he knows what makes countries succeed and he knows what makes countries fail. And in that regard, I do believe he will know what he's talking about. He will be able to see the indicators, at least on a very macro level, on a very, think tank conference level, that if there are indicators, those are hints of a failing state or a succeeding state. And he says he wants to bring Korea up to global standards in that regard. And in that sense, I think that is very inspiring from Pan Ki-moon. So what do you think? What are your initial reactions so far of the former UN Secretary General just popping right in and then wanting to run for president and then lead Korea? Do you think he has what it takes? What do you need to see from him in order for him to get your vote? Put your comments down below. And again, thank you so much as always for watching. We'll see you again next time. Bye.